This video is about doing your build 3 times because of things you put off, things that you think about that you need to do but you don't do it when you should do it, things that you've made mistakes on because you don't know what you're doing. A little frustration in my voice, but that's all right. Things are progressing. So here are a few items. One, passenger side foot box. Well, that's fine. Everything was going well together. In fact, that I thought, all right, well, it's time to put this together permanent. So what I'll do is I'll put in this first, I need to put in this first piece, this one right here. But in order to get to that, in order to clean behind it, in order to put sealant and then permanently put it in place, I needed to take out the passenger foot box, I need to take out the floor pan, I need to take the back wall out so that I could take out the floor pan, and then I had to take out the driver's side floor pan also in order to be able to take out the back wall. So essentially all the aluminum is out so that I can start putting it back together, which is fine. I mean, that's mock-up and then you put it back together, but it's, looking at it, looks like you're going backwards. All right, the second thing. Well, I had this brake line that was looped up a little too high, not that high, but it did in fact touch the body when I put it on there, so I needed to redo it by making it shorter. And this did have another attachment, had another adapter that stood a little higher, and that's why this was high. Anyway, needed to make some brake line so that I could tie the two together to get this lower so that I can get the body on and not have the brake line rubbing against the body. That's a good thing. It's necessary. And during that time, I thought, oh wait, I'm not sure if I got the brake stroke for the I don't know if I have my gap for the rod to be able to touch the master cylinder, which is this rod right here. Will it hit that back wall, which what I've read could lock up your brakes if you're driving along because it's applying pressure to your brakes. So you need to have that gap. Well, I didn't have that set, so I needed to go back in and set that gap. And now I've done so, so now I can put this back on. But then I thought, wait, I need to bench bleed the master, so I need to take this off and bench bleed it so that I can put these brake lines back together and start doing the brake system. However, before I do that, the SN95 spindles that I had, I was going to put a bump steer kit, so this hole was drilled out to be a 5/8 through hole, 5/8 down on the bottom, tapered up to a smaller diameter on the top, which I'm not sure what it is, but I had drilled all the way through, so there was a little play in the steering. So I needed to swap these out. While doing so, I did have bolts without washers, so I wanted to go ahead and put on washers, and in doing so I found that my current bolts were going to be too short, so then I had to go to Home Depot in order to buy longer bolts. That's all fine. It's a good thing that I did that because I had to take off the brake line to take off this whole assembly in order to be able to swap this out. So it's a good thing that I did not prime the brake lines ahead of time. Okay, so now I'm feeling good about the front being put together because I've got both sides done. They're looking good. I went ahead and did the pour 15 on here, and then I went ahead and did the lower tie rod ends and the outer tie rod ends, and that's when I learned that with the power steering rack, I've got my extenders on there, that it extends it out too long, and I can't get this, I'm not going to be able to get my wheel straight. The inner tie rod ends are too long. They need to be trimmed, and from the research I've looked at is the outer tie rod ends also need to be trimmed so that you've got about 1.5 inches short on, it's 1.5 inches shorter on both sides, so that you can adjust your wheels how they should be. So now I've got to take those inner and outer tie rod ends to work so that I can, we've got vertical bandsaw, I'll just trim them off and then bring them back and put them back together. So I've been working backwards, however, it's working forward at the same time, because these are things that I've always had in the back of my mind that I need to do, but just, you know, haven't done them. And it's a good thing that we're getting them done. I feel better about the build. They're just, you know, always little nagging things, but I need to tighten those things up and whatnot. But otherwise, I mean, once I put that piece on there and I put the passenger foot box back together, I can bench bleed this master and I can get the brake lines primed, and then once I have the tie rods shortened, then I can start to do my steering, line that up. All these things that I've skipped in order to make progress in my build. You know, you kind of want to move on to the next step. So it's not like you take shortcuts, it's just that, you know, you want to move on. Okay, that's enough for steering, let's move on to this, that, and the other. And it just added up to where I needed to get to it. So I've been going backwards, but making progress at the same time. Thanks for listening to my rant.